Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. Stranger Outside Window. Emma's fingers traced the edge of the moving box as she gazed out of her new apartment window. The cityscape shimmered under the glow of countless streetlights, and for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope. This place was supposed to be her fresh start, a way to leave behind the ghosts of her past and rebuild her life. The apartment itself was nothing fancy, a modest one-bedroom unit on the second floor of an older building. But it was hers, and that was all that mattered. She spent the first few days unpacking, arranging her furniture, and decorating the space with warm, inviting touches. By the end of the week, it finally felt like home. But then the small, unsettling things began. It started with the curtains. Emma had a habit of keeping them closed in the evenings, shielding herself from the darkened world outside. Yet, several mornings in a row, she found them slightly ajar, just enough for someone to peek in. At first, she chalked it up to a draft or her own forgetfulness. Maybe she hadn't pulled them tightly enough the night before. Then came the tapping. It was faint, almost imperceptible, like the gentle peck of a bird's beak against glass. The first time she heard it, she assumed it was just that, a bird. But when it happened again, night after night, always around the same time, unease began to creep into her mind. One evening, as she sat curled up on the couch watching TV, she caught something in her peripheral vision. A shadow moved across the window. Emma's heart leapt into her throat, and she froze, her eyes darting toward the glass. For a moment, she saw nothing but her own reflection staring back at her. Then, there it was, a dark, humanoid figure standing just beyond the edge of the curtains. Adrenaline surged through her veins. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling as she explained the situation. The dispatcher assured her that an officer would be sent to check the area, but by the time they arrived, the shadowy figure was long gone. The police did a cursory search and found no signs of forced entry or footprints outside the window. They told her to keep her doors locked and call again if anything else happened. Emma tried to convince herself it was a one-time incident, a prank, or perhaps her imagination playing tricks on her. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Over the next few weeks, the unease only grew. She started noticing other oddities, items in her apartment slightly out of place, like her keys moved from the kitchen counter to the coffee table, or her mail tampered with before she could retrieve it. One night, she woke up to find her bedroom door ajar when she was certain she had closed it before going to bed. The final straw came one morning when Emma stumbled groggily to her front door to grab the newspaper. As she bent down, her eyes caught sight of a small piece of paper slid under the door. Her hands trembled as she picked it up and unfolded it. Scrawled in jagged, almost childlike handwriting were the words, "I like watching you sleep." Emma's vision blurred as panic set in. She locked every door and window in her apartment and called the police again, this time demanding they take her seriously. Officers arrived within minutes, and she handed them the note, her voice shaking as she recounted everything that had happened. The investigation that followed revealed a chilling truth. Her next-door neighbor, a man she had exchanged polite hellos with in the hallway, had been letting himself into her apartment using a spare key he'd stolen from the landlord's office. Hidden cameras placed around her apartment by the police captured him entering late at night, watching her sleep, and even rifling through her belongings. When the police arrested him, Emma felt a mix of relief and lingering fear. The neighbor claimed he was just curious and meant no harm, but the sinister reality of his actions left a permanent scar on her sense of security. The landlord was held accountable for failing to properly secure the keys, and Emma moved out of the building within days. Though she tried to put the ordeal behind her, the experience haunted Emma for years. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind against her window sent her heart racing. She learned to triple-check her locks and installed an elaborate security system in her new home. But the memory of the shadow outside her window remained, a chilling reminder of how easily one's sanctuary can be invaded by darkness. Story 2. Followed at the mall. It was a crisp Saturday afternoon, and the mall buzzed with life. Sarah had decided to treat herself to a solo shopping trip. She had been working hard all week and deserved a little retail therapy. Walking past the glimmering store windows, she felt a rare sense of freedom. She stopped by a cozy coffee shop, grabbed a latte, and wandered into her favorite clothing store. She was flipping through racks of sweaters when she noticed him for the first time, a man in a dark hoodie lingering by the entrance. He wasn't shopping, just standing there, his hands tucked into his pockets. Sarah glanced at him briefly, then dismissed the thought. Malls were full of people. There was no reason to feel uneasy. Yet, as she moved to another store, he appeared again. This time, he was leaning against a display near the entrance, staring at his phone. Sarah frowned. Maybe it was just a coincidence. After all, it wasn't unusual to run into the same people in a mall. But when she walked into a home goods store 2 levels up, her stomach sank. There he was, browsing a shelf of candles. His presence felt too deliberate now. The man never made eye contact, but she could feel his attention. Her heart began to race, and she clutched her shopping bag tightly. Sarah decided to test her growing suspicion. She entered a boutique with only one exit, a small, intimate store filled with handcrafted jewelry. She pretended to examine a necklace while keeping an eye on the door. Sure enough, moments later, he walked in. His hood was still up, and he moved aimlessly through the store, pretending to browse. Her breathing quickened, and her palms grew clammy. This was no coincidence. She pulled out her phone and texted her best friend, "Hey, can you come to the mall? There's this guy who's been following me. I'm really scared." "On my way," her friend replied almost instantly. Relief washed over her, but she still felt trapped. The boutique was small, and the man had positioned himself near the door. She pretended to be interested in a bracelet, hoping to buy time until her friend arrived. Minutes felt like hours as Sarah's mind raced. What did he want? Should she confront him? Should she alert the staff? She glanced at the sales associate, but the woman was busy with another customer. Suddenly, the man moved. He walked toward the exit, but not before glancing back at her one last time. That look sent a shiver down her spine. It wasn't curiosity, it was a silent acknowledgement, as if he wanted her to know he was watching. Then he was gone. Sarah bolted out of the store and hurried toward the mall's central fountain, where she had asked her friend to meet her. She kept glancing over her shoulder, her heart pounding in her chest. The mall felt less lively now, the laughter of children and chatter of shoppers muffled by her fear. When her friend, Emily, arrived, Sarah nearly collapsed into her arms. "He's gone," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But he was following me. I'm sure of it." Emily guided her to the security office. They explained the situation to the guards, who took it seriously. They pulled up footage from the mall security cameras. As Sarah described the man's appearance, the guards fast-forwarded through the video feed. "There," Sarah said, pointing at the screen. The man in the hoodie was visible, lingering near the coffee shop she'd visited first. The footage showed him following her into each store, always keeping a subtle distance. Sarah's skin crawled as she watched the screen. He had been shadowing her from the moment she entered the mall. The guards assured her they would keep an eye out for him and offered to escort her to her car. Emily stayed by her side, gripping her hand tightly. "What if he comes back?" Sarah whispered as they walked toward the parking lot. "He won't," Emily said firmly. "And if he does, we'll deal with it. You're not alone in this." That night, Sarah couldn't shake the man's face from her mind. His silent acknowledgement haunted her. She double-checked the locks on her doors and windows before going to bed, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Though she was safe for now, a lingering sense of vulnerability followed her. The world had always felt like a safe, predictable place. But now, it seemed a little darker. In the days that followed, Sarah found herself looking over her shoulder more often, scanning crowds for familiar faces. She avoided going to the mall alone and started carrying pepper spray in her bag. While she never saw the man again, the memory of that day stayed with her, a chilling reminder of how quickly an ordinary afternoon could turn into a nightmare. Story 3. The Silent Caller. Ava was just settling into bed when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She glanced at the screen, expecting it to be her best friend or a work notification. Instead, the caller ID simply read "unknown number." She furrowed her brow, but declined the call. It wasn't unusual for telemarketers or scam calls to come through at odd hours. Rolling over, she dismissed it from her mind. The phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time, a flicker of unease settled in her chest. She stared at the screen until the ringing stopped. Moments later, the voicemail icon appeared. Curiosity got the better of her, and she played the message. Nothing, just silence. Then, after a pause, breathing, slow, deliberate, and chillingly close. Her finger hovered over the delete button as a shiver ran down her spine. It's just a prank, she told herself. Someone's bored and trying to scare people. She erased the message and turned off her phone, thinking it would be the end of it. But Ava was wrong. Over the next few days, the calls continued. Always from the same unknown number. Always the same unnerving silence punctuated by shallow breaths. She'd begun to dread the sound of her phone vibrating. At work, she kept it on silent, but her anxiety grew each time she saw the missed calls. Her coworkers noticed her jumpiness. "You okay, Ava?" her friend Kayla asked one afternoon. "You've been on edge all week." "Just not sleeping well," Ava lied. She didn't want to sound paranoid. Besides, what could she say? That some weirdo was breathing into her voicemail? It sounded ridiculous even to her. That evening, she decided to block the number. Sitting in her dimly lit living room, she navigated to her call history and hit block contact. A wave of relief washed over her as she set the phone down. Problem solved. But the peace didn't last long. Around midnight, Ava's phone lit up again. This time it was a text. Nice red sweater. Her blood ran cold. Earlier that evening, she had posted a photo of herself on Instagram wearing a red sweater. The caption read, "Cozy nights in." Her hands trembled as she stared at the screen. Who was this? How did they know about her post? She quickly checked her Instagram settings, confirming her profile was private. Only her friends could see her posts. The realization made her stomach churn. It had to be someone she knew. Panic set in. She locked all the doors and windows, double-checking each one. Her heart pounded as she peeked through the blinds, scanning the quiet street outside. Nothing seemed out of place, but the feeling of being watched was suffocating. The next morning, Ava's fear turned into frustration. She reported the incident to the police, showing them the messages and explaining the calls. The officer she spoke with was sympathetic but non-committal. "We'll file a report and monitor the situation. Let us know if it escalates," he said. Escalate it did. That afternoon, as she walked to her car in the office parking lot, she stopped short. Her car window had been shattered. Glass littered the pavement, glittering under the sunlight. Inside, on the driver's seat, was a folded piece of paper. With shaking hands, she unfolded it to reveal a chilling message. "I'm closer than you think." Tears welled in her eyes as she backed away from the car, fumbling for her phone to call the police. When they arrived, they dusted for fingerprints and took the note as evidence. But there were no immediate leads. That night, Ava barely slept. Every creak of her apartment building made her flinch. Her phone, now permanently set to silent mode, felt like a ticking time bomb. Around 3 a.m., she heard footsteps outside her window. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Gathering her courage, she peeked through the blinds. A man stood there, half hidden in the shadows. He wore a hoodie, the fabric obscuring his face. He didn't move, just stood there, staring at her window. Ava's trembling hand dialed 911 as she whispered her address to the operator. The man seemed to sense it and took off running before the police arrived. The next day, Ava's life changed. Determined to identify the stalker, the police requested her social media activity and connections. It didn't take long for them to find a match. An old acquaintance, someone Ava had rejected years ago, had been using fake accounts to follow her online. His obsession had grown over time, culminating in the terrifying harassment she had been enduring. He was arrested, and a restraining order was put in place. But the damage was done. Ava's sense of security was shattered. She moved to a new apartment, changed her number, and deleted most of her social media accounts. Yet, the fear lingered. Every unknown call, every shadow in the night, sent her heart racing. Even though he was behind bars, the trauma stayed with her, a reminder of how quickly life could spiral into a nightmare. Ava would never forget the silent calls that had marked the beginning of her descent into fear.